Hi, I'm Gene Bergman. I'm a former city attorney from, I'm a former city councilor from Ward 2, 3 terms, and also the former senior assistant city attorney for the city of Burlington. I'm recently retired, and after 20 years of serving in the city attorney's office. And we're here today to talk about a charter change to expand the downtown improvement district, what is now the Church Street Marketplace. On March 5th, it is likely that voters will be asked to vote on a charter change to expand the marketplace and to change the governance structure. And there are going to be public hearings. We're actually taping this before the last public hearing, which will be happening on January 28th, and then the City Council is going to vote. So the proposal as it stands is the one that we're going to be talking about, and we are here today to express our strong opposition to the proposal. Hopefully the City Council will not put it on the ballot and will rework it. But I'm here today with Betsy McGavisk, and Larry Lewack, and I'm going to start with Betsy and to ask you to tell us a little about yourself and why you oppose the DID charter change.
Great. Thanks, Gene. So again, my name is Betsy McGavisk. I am a current senior at UVM, and I'm studying Community and International Development within the Department of Community Development and Applied Economics. I'm specifically interested in studying citywide issues. I'm not really studying much of the international side of things, and specifically housing. So right now I'm working on my senior honors thesis, which is about housing policy in Burlington, specifically inclusionary zoning. I first learned about the Downtown Improvement District for a class I was taking last year when I did a research project about the trend of privatization in cities. And then I kind of came across business improvement districts in other cities, and then it came up that this proposal was happening in Burlington. So I started to get a little bit involved. I wrote an op-ed for Vermont Digger.
Would this happen to be
This is it. And it outlines a little bit of what I'm going to be talking about here, and a little bit more in depth. But I'm also a renter in Burlington. I would ideally like to stay here after next year, but we'll see how it goes, see if I can afford it.
So why don't you talk to us and to the people about your main, the main reasons that you don't think this is a good idea.
Right, so one of my primary concerns is the trend of gentrification in Burlington and the trend of people getting priced out because it's so expensive to live here, specifically how expensive it is to rent here, and that the history that downtown and business improvement districts have in other cities of increasing rents, making it harder for people to rent in areas, displacing people, increases in evictions and things like that. So 60% of Burlington rents. And if we look at the proposed downtown improvement district, it's downtown. So that's not single family homes. It's likely apartments. The people that live there are also likely renters, and it's much higher percentage of renters than 60% likely downtown. And so my concern with the downtown improvement district is going to be the impact on these renters from the enhanced services that the downtown improvement district is outlined to provide.
I mean, do you think also that this will have an impact on renters that are in the old North End to the north on Pearl Street, and then south in Maple and St. Paul and all those other areas close to Spruce Street, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. As people start to get priced out, or as landlords start to hike up prices downtown because of the enhanced services, whatever they may be, like flower pots or lighting and things like that, landlords will see that, be able to charge a premium, and that'll be in the downtown area. But then landlords across Burlington can do the same. People that are living there now will move into the Old North End, will move to the Hill District, and it'll just squeeze us all a lot more than we already are. And those who are really benefiting from it will be the businesses, the business owners who are receiving increased profits because of the downtown improvement district enhanced services, but it will also be the property owners. And so, if we're thinking about who owns property downtown or who owns their home downtown, it's going to be people who are already wealthy. They're much more likely to be white. And so they will be the ones benefiting. They will have increased generational wealth because the wealth of their homes will increase, but it'll be at the expense of lower and middle income people that are renting downtown.
Okay, well, we'll give you a break right here.
Yeah, thank you.
That you're welcome. This is just a citizen panel, but we try our best here. And let's turn to Larry. And could you tell us a little about yourself and why you oppose this downtown improvement district charter change proposal?
Certainly. So I have lived in Burlington since 1982. I currently work in the nonprofit field, and also I'm work for the town of Bolton as a planning and zoning administrator part-time. My political involvement has spanned many years. I am currently on the city committee of Burlington Progressive Party, so I'm involved in helping to recruit candidates and help people who are interested run for office as progressives. And I really am here today to talk about this issue, partly based on just being a citizen of Burlington who's concerned about the direction our city is going in, but also because I have with my background in the nonprofit sector, which spans over 25 years at this point, I'm just really puzzled by the city's rush to turn over the management of services that have previously been a function of city government to a new nonprofit entity, because the rationale for doing so is really unclear to me, and it doesn't really jibe with my experience in the nonprofit sector.
Give us some examples. I mean, the people are getting a sales pitch on this that really doesn't focus on that at all. Mm-hmm. In the public hearings that I've gone to, privatization hasn't really been mentioned. It's all about these enhanced services, and they don't even mention that this is going to be taken from the public and given to a private entity.
Right, so let's understand a little bit about the current structure, which is proposed to be changed by this charter change. That'll be on the ballot, likely be on the ballot in March. So currently we have the city as an entity. The city has exclusive control over ordinances and the use of streets and fees and services that are charged to residents and to business owners, et cetera. And some of those functions have been shared through an entity within city government called the Church Street Marketplace District. And the Marketplace District, as it's currently set up, has employees. They carry out certain functions in order to fund those functions and services that it provides to businesses along the Church Street Marketplace District, which is a very narrowly defined slice of downtown.
That's a public entity, right?
It's a public entity that operates under city government with the full authority and power of city government, for example, to levy special fees. So if you are a business that has frontage on the Church Street Marketplace, you are very likely assessed a fee called an assessment by the city, which is additional to the property taxes that you owe the city. And through that assessment, fees are generated, which fund some of the special services, the frequent cleaning, the intensive snow plowing and snow removal that we've seen in recent days, certainly some enhanced maintenance, the putting up of decorations around the holidays, the regulation of buskers and street vendors, et cetera, et cetera. And these are all things that I think most of us would agree have a social benefit beyond the businesses that operate on the Church Street Marketplace, because it creates a welcoming environment for residents, for people who work downtown, for tourists, visitors to town. There's a lot of amenities and vibrant street life which is associated with that when it's not so cold that people can't just go outdoors like it's been a lot these past couple of weeks. Generally speaking, it works. And so my puzzlement as somebody who's well vested in the nonprofit sector is, if we have a model that's basically working to provide enhanced services and support through special assessments for the businesses along the downtown district, do we need to replace it, or do we need to expand it so that it can do more of what it already does pretty well? And one of the hallmarks of nonprofits in our economy is that they're often created out of what's called a market failure, which is to say that if there's a need that arises and it's not profitable for a for-profit business to serve that need, then a nonprofit arises often to fill that gap and carry out a social mission with some public funds, perhaps, private donations, fees for services, what have you. In this situation that we have today with the Church Street Marketplace District, we have a public entity which is performing specialized functions under the rubric and authority of a public body, the City of Burlington, and its taxpayers, which it could do more of if that's the goal here. And one of the things that I think we'll get up on the screen when this segment is edited is a map of the proposed expansion of the current Church Street Marketplace District.
We have such a map right there.
So maybe we'll have the ability to put it up on people's screens full size. And the gist of where I'm going with this is that currently, as I said before, Church Street Marketplace District is just the slice of businesses right along the 4 downtown blocks of Church Street. And part of what's driving this proposal, I believe, is a legitimate desire to extend some of the benefits to businesses outside the district and also require them to pay into the cost of providing those enhanced services, which I'm not opposed to. I think it's actually a great idea. It makes a lot of sense. You know, there are certainly businesses along the College Street corridor, Bank Street, that benefit from the services that are provided just to the businesses now along the Church Street Marketplace. Only those businesses are paying. So what we have here, in effect, is a free rider problem, is what the economists would call it. So the businesses that are not right on the Church Street are benefiting from the marketing and promotion and the assessments that are being paid by Church Street businesses, but they're not covering the cost of that. And so by all means, if what we need to do is to expand the scope of the district so that it includes more businesses that are legitimately part of downtown activity, let's do that. But it can be done under the rubric of the existing accountable Church Street Marketplace District. We could rename it to something broader than just Church Street Marketplace, and we can expand its scope and authority to collect revenues from businesses not right on Church Street, and it would still perform many of the same kind of functions, but over a broader geographical area. I think that's in the public interest. So really the core question that's posed by this charter change, if it comes to the ballot, for town meeting day vote, is why do we need to abolish the current regime and replace it with a nonprofit entity which will not have the same level of accountability as the Church Street Marketplace District does today.
So one more follow-up with you, Larry, and then I will turn back to Betsy. Now, you've had a chance to look at the promotional materials that supporters of this proposal have put out, and that the consultant, they hired a private consultant to do that, and they did surveys and they did interviews. They came up with their own, reasons for why they went private. When you look at that documentation, do you find any justification for privatizing the governance of this district?
Well, I would say that there's an outreach summary that was prepared by the firm that conducted these surveys and some of the outreach meetings. And one of the most revealing questions that came out of the survey and the responses were the question: do you think that a new improvement district in the downtown is generally a good idea? And there were I think 23 answers to those questions. 9 people answered yes, 1 person answered no, and then the highest response was 11 people said it depends on the details.
And was there any questions that said there's a problem with public governance?
No.
Is there anything that indicated that people thought that we needed to have a private entity be in charge of this and take the tax dollars? No,
and in fact, another document that I've looked at is there's a memo from the mayor's office which outlined in December the proposal in some detail for creating the Downtown Improvement District, and part of the memo is a 1.5-page long list that divides up what the authority of each the city would be and what the authority of the proposed improvement district would be. And I went through that list and I marked up every single entry on the list under the city's proposed authority of 13 bullets. All but 5 of them were things that the city already does and would do anyway. And of the things that the downtown entity, the new entity, would perform, what it would have authority to do, there were 5 things that the Church Street Marketplace District already does and does reasonably well, and nobody's established why they're not doing it, and we're given a convincing argument. And then the other bullets are mostly things that the city can and does do already. So, to me, this list of proposed powers and authorities begs the question of, why is a new entity even needed if the current regime of the city plus the downtown marketplace district services is already getting the job done? If the question is really scope in terms of the geography of which businesses have to pay assessments and get services, that's a different question than what kind of entity is best positioned to provide those services.
It looks to me like they've created this Frankenstein monster because they've tried to cobble together public controls in order to do a job that the city is doing and perfectly capable of doing already. Mm-hmm. And it creates major problems. Turning back to Betsy, you talked about gentrification and stuff. Is there anything in this proposal that would help to mitigate what you were saying are going to be necessary things?
No, there isn't. And yeah, there's nothing in the proposal to allocate funds to address this problem. And the existence of the Downtown Improvement District is really to provide a fiduciary duty to the businesses in the district. So, that is not the concern of people getting priced out is not at all under the scope of this charter change.
Am I right to have read this as saying that, in fact, the city can't use any of the monies that are generated to offset the effects of gentrification and displacement? We couldn't. So I'm right on reading it like that?
I mean, based on what exists now,
right?
That's the case.
I mean, and we are here to be really clear as part of an effort to try to get the city council to change things, because we're here on Friday the 25th, and there's a public hearing on the 28th at 7 o'clock, and the council could change it, could decide not to put it on, or could take out the privatization. They could put in the ability for the city to use funds to mitigate effects of gentrification. So there are things that can be done as we speak. All indications are, to my reading of it, is that is not likely, and unfortunately we'll be having to go out and campaign against this further, and we'll try to come back here and talk about the final plan. But as the plan currently exists, your read is that they can't use any funds to help tenants or even commercial tenants who may be priced out.
Right, and that's something that's happened in a lot of other cities, that nonprofit businesses, smaller businesses end up getting priced out. The funds allocated, like in the plan now, aren't necessarily going to be raised for or from the nonprofits. So nonprofits especially if they're providing services to the community, don't have to pay into the DID fund. But that doesn't mean their landlords can't, again, hike up the prices of these commercial spaces because of the enhanced services. And
oh, that's an interesting point.
Yeah,
so a nonprofit in a business mm-hmm. could end up getting their rent increased unless they own the property.
Right, because at the end of the day, it is the property owners that are paying into it, and they're expected to pass off the tax, the fees meant to be paid into the DID to the tenants. Individual businesses. Yeah. And the fees are lowered or they don't exist for nonprofits and service providers like that, but it doesn't mean their landlords still can't increase the prices.
So you've studied what's happened in other cities.
Yeah.
With these things.
Right.
And part of the rationale was, well, they do this all over the place. We should do it just like them. And that's the rationale that I've been given for why we're going private, because that's what they do elsewhere. And that's the rationale that I was given for why we don't have monies raised to offset the costs of or the effect of gentrification. They don't do that there. So therefore, we must not be able to do it. Makes no sense at all.
Right.
I find that to be objectionable, and I could be more graphic in my language, but I'm on TV. It's program. But I'm curious, Betsy, as to what you found when you're in your research for what's happened out there in the world.
And so it's happened across the country. And DC, it's happened a lot too, specifically like Georgetown, California, Staten Island. It's happened all across New York, but Staten Island was one specific instance where people, kind of put up a fight. And really, if you look at the responses from individuals that are in these districts and the families that own businesses in these districts, they don't want it. They don't like it. And especially homeless community members in these districts.
What happens with those folks?
Right. So studies in other cities, are specifically one in California where they went and talked to homeless community members who are in these districts. And oftentimes these districts outline something called an ambassador program. And so actually in our proposed charter change of the purpose of the Downtown Improvement District, point 4, it is to help address issues with street-level behavior. And again, going back to the point of who is this Downtown Improvement District for, it's for the fiduciary duty of the businesses. So this is not, addressing street-level behavior isn't necessarily to, and that language, it's not good. But it's not necessarily for the sake of these community members, but it's for the sake of private profits. And if you look at those studies where homeless community members in downtown improvement districts are asked, what has been the impact of it, it's increased private policing, and it's not necessarily called private policing, but it's called an ambassador program, where homeless community members are essentially asked to leave, or pushed out, or they're harassed until they do. And again, it's not for the sake of these people, it's for the sake of business profits and to have other people with money to be in the stores. And this is quite literally putting the profits of private businesses over the existence of people in our community. And again, this isn't just new to Burlington, it's been documented in cities across the country.
Okay.
And I want to talk a little bit about gentrification in the broader context. So it doesn't affect only homeless individuals who don't have a place to live, but it also is about the kind of people and the diversity of people who live and work downtown. So one of the things that makes the current downtown atmosphere as vibrant and inclusive as it is that we have people living downtown. Some of the second and third story apartments above the street level retail and commercial are made up of people who rent or own property and have basically said, I know it's going to be noisy downtown. I'm willing to live with that so that I can enjoy the benefits 24/7 of being right in the heart of things. My daughter is one of those individuals who lives right downtown. And my daughter is not a wealthy person. She's working class, and she there are people with other incomes downtown, and I would submit that this is a good thing. I think that we have a more interesting downtown with almost 24/7 activity that feels safe and is safe in part because there's activity 24/7. There are other cities that I visited as traveled around the country that don't have that. For example, one might say of places like downtown St. Louis that they roll up the sidewalks at 5:30 because so many of the people who occupy city streets during the day, business people and visitors, leave at the end of the business day, and there's therefore no business for commercial retail establishments, restaurants, and so they all close down. And there's nothing to do after dark except for a small cluster of activity around the downtown business hotels where business people who are traveling stay. Other than that, almost nothing. We don't want Burlington to become like that. And however, one of the unintended consequences of gentrification is that it narrows the people who can afford to live downtown, and maybe pushes some of them out because of increasing rents, as Betsy was pointing out. And so over time, it would narrow and really restrict the social classes and the economic groups that can afford to participate in the mix of downtown activity, and therefore there'll be less business for the businesses that depend on that 24/7 activity, and this would be a loss for Burlington. It would make Church Street and the whole downtown district less interesting place to hang out. It would be less attractive to street performers, to street vendors of food from food carts and that type of thing. It would really cheapen and worsen the environment rather than make it better. I think it's in the city's interest to have a culturally vibrant, economically diverse downtown, which is welcoming to all social classes, all types of businesses. And I think this proposal, if it goes forward, might actually undermine those objectives.
I mean, it's also, it undermines the very nature of what people like Bernie, and I served on the council when he was the mayor, and other people have been doing to try to make this a city for all, a city that works for the many and not just the few. And it actually runs counter to the professed claims of even the current administration to have a more equitable and diverse community. So the fact that they prohibit funds to go to mitigate that, knowing they should know full well what the gentrification and displacement effects are going to be, is sad, and it's ironic in the sense of them having having policies that promote inclusion, and yet creating enclaves for an elite slice of our society. One of the things that they're allowed to do is to contract for services in city in city properties as well, that the private entity would actually be able to perform services in city parks. So I'm wondering, Larry, that sounds like a privatization of city jobs, taking good union jobs from the Parks Department and then putting them into a nonprofit that is not likely to have a pension. City workers have a pension. Thank you very much, people of the city, for that, and great health care, as well as unions to protect people. So what are you guys' thoughts about that?
I mean, I think those are the folks who shovel the snow, who empty the trash cans now for the Marketplace District are union employees, correct?
I'm not sure if they're union employees, and I don't understand why they wouldn't be part of the bargaining unit. If they're not, I would encourage them to join the union.
But your larger point, though, is that they are city employees,
yes.
So they benefit from a certain level of wage parity with other city employees doing comparable work, and certainly benefits that are important if you're trying to own property, raise a family, provide for your loved ones and yourself as you age. And these things, it's unclear, even though there have been some assurances to the contrary, it's unclear whether this new entity would extend the same benefits to its employees that would be taking over these functions from current city employees. And that I have a problem with that. I really do. And I also feel like, that we have to acknowledge when we talk about gentrification that it's already a significant challenge for the city of Burlington. There's a lot of people who rent outside the downtown district who have been squeezed out of places by higher rents, who are paying, inordinately high rents for, in many cases, properties that are not kept up very well. And that's not doesn't adhere to the well-being for the majority of the city, that's the case. People who own property are well-placed. People who are renting are, in many cases, fairly powerless to do anything about these demographic changes. And we need, as a city, to forthrightly embrace the problem of gentrification and ask, what do we need to do to support tenants, to support people who are not wealthy, who don't own property, to have a high quality of life in the city. And I'm not sure whether the current administration really owns that challenge fully. I think they seem to have pursued a lot of policies that are aimed at promoting business development, especially in the downtown district, but don't seem as interested in doing things to support people of low income and working class who are having a hard time making ends meet, hard time paying the rent, and who need the city to be on their side when decisions are made about how to allocate city resources and how to direct public policy. So, we've talked as progressives, for example, about the importance of maintaining our strong inclusionary housing zoning, which requires developers to dedicate a certain percentage of units to be permanently affordable to residents who are low income and working class. And there have been attempts to water that down by the current administration. And it's important to see this proposal in the larger context of whose city is this anyway? Who does city government work for? Do they work for the interests of the downtown business community, which is a legitimate public policy goal? I don't argue or disagree with that. Or do they work for the public interest of all the residents of Burlington, including businesses, including people of all social and economic classes? And progressives maintain that it should be the latter, and that it's the responsibility of all of us as citizens to make sure that our city government is serving the broad public purpose and not the interests of the few.
Okay. Betsy?
Well, I think you made a good point, Larry, and I just want to add, there was that report that came out recently that there are 1,700 evictions that happen in Vermont annually. And a lot of people that own homes really don't have to think about that or have any idea what that experience is like, but that happens in Burlington frequently. And so this idea of gentrification is not only, it prices people out, but it's a really troubling personal experience when that kind of thing happens. And back to your point of who are we serving? Is it the many or the few? 60% of Burlington is renters, and it feels like we're being sold the idea that if we help out these few number of businesses, this small group of people, it will help the rest of us, which is trickle-down economics at its finest. And I think you probably learned in the 80s that doesn't work so well.
Yeah, it did not work very well, I don't think.
And so, I don't know, it seems like it's a shared experience among young people, working people that were paying $700, $800, $900 a month for really low quality housing, and this problem just doesn't seem to be being addressed at all. And if anything, these policies are working against the majority of us.
All right. Well, I think we're pretty close to the end, and we'll try to post some documents and links to some documents, because I've given presentations to the City Council to try to get them to see a different light, and hopefully this will help with that regard. You guys have any parting thoughts that you want to say besides echoing the vote no on this proposal on March 5th if this goes through?
Well, I just might add that I feel like there are aspects of this proposal that are worthy of further public debate and conversation. And I think for me, it comes down to, what do we mean by a high quality of life? What do we want for a vibrant, safe, inclusive downtown environment? And I would be very open as a citizen to voting for a proposition that would propose to expand the existing Church Street Marketplace District, keep the public entity, keep the public control and accountability that comes with a public entity, if it meant that more businesses would pay into the costs of maintaining an expanded downtown district with a lot of the services that are now enjoyed only by the businesses that line the Church Street Marketplace. And I think there's a good argument to be made for that, and I would support that kind of a change. And I think most residents of the city would, if it meant that we could have a downtown which is safer, better taken care of, which has more cultural activity and offerings, which welcomes people of different social classes, visitors, residents, people who work in downtown businesses. That would all be good. That's the kind of downtown I think we all want. I don't think that this proposal gets us closer to that, and it may in fact move us away from that vision. So, for those reasons, if it's on the ballot, I'm going to vote against it and urge other people to do the same.
Betsy?
Yeah, I mean, I think without things to protect renters, I can't imagine myself ever supporting this without something concrete in place to protect the people that are living downtown or, in the surrounding neighborhoods. But I think because we're still having this conversation, this decision or this updated version was released on Monday, or Tuesday, right?
Yeah. Tuesday, actually, that's the existing one.
Oh, okay.
They have a list of proposed changes which have not even been drafted, so they're
right. And they're supposed to be deciding on Monday whether or not to put this on the ballot. This whole thing just seems so rushed, so under discussed, under surveyed. And this feels like we're moving way too fast and really haven't considered all of the impacts.
Yep. I would agree. I haven't heard a single person at any of the public hearings that I've been to voice support for the privatization of the marketplace governance. And I've heard people say this is rushed. And it's clearly incomplete because they're going to be tabling at least some amendments to identify things because there were gaps in what they wrote. So I think what I'm hearing you guys say is that rather than try to jam it down our throats, that the City Council should take some more time. That's going to take 7 votes of City Councilors. And we'll see just what the lineup is on Monday, on the 28th when they come. I want to thank you both for taking the time to do this. This is not easy as citizens for us to analyze. I think this is a 16-page document. It's a good thing that I was a former senior assistant city attorney because I can read this stuff, but it is not easy. So you guys have done, I think, a really great job as citizens to learn about this and to express a view which is not really heard. And I want to thank Channel 17 for giving us the opportunity to talk about this. It's why public access is so important, and we just need, in this increasing world of privatization, we need to keep things like public access on. So thanks very much. I'm Gene Bergman, and I look forward to chatting with you all in the future about this, either to oppose a bad proposal or to work to make something that is really befitting of Burlington. Thanks very much, and have a great day.